The Dharma, incomparably profound and exquisite, is rarely met with even in hundreds of thousands of millions of kalpas. We now can see it, hear it, accept and hold it. May we realize the true mind of the Tathagata. Today is the fourth day of this 7-day sesshin in February 2024 at Mountain Gate in northern New Mexico. When I was in high school, the preferred haircut for my fellow male students was called the DA. It was combed back on each side to resemble the behind of a duck. Then, not long after that, flat tops came into vogue, and that doesn't require any explanation. And eventually, into the 60s, we had the Beatles, and the Beatle haircut became popular. And then it got longer and longer, and culture wars began. But I was quite surprised when I went to the Rochester Zen Center, and there was another member there. He wasn't on staff, or that is, he wasn't residential at the center because he had a family and he had a business. He was a contractor, and he had a flat top. How many decades later? And then I began to notice that my high school classmates, there were only 2 of us that dared to venture out of state to go to college. The rest of them went to Indiana University or Purdue or Ball State. But most of them were back home before the end of the first year. It's like they had gotten so accustomed to being where they were that it was too much to leave. Habit can lock us into a place of no forward march, no forward adventures, no forward experiences. We just stay stuck in a particular era. And that's what happened to a number of my high school classmates. Very few of us actually continued on through college. My old high school boyfriend actually got a PhD. And another high school classmate ended up majoring in Russian and going to Russia as an international banker. But that was about it. There are definitions of habit. A recurring, often unconscious pattern, recurring but unconscious pattern of behavior, acquired through frequent repetition. 2 things to notice here: unconscious and frequent repetition. Why am I bringing this up? Because we carry it through our lives, habit patterns, and we don't realize how widespread it is and how it is most likely affecting our Zen practice. In fact, it would be extremely rare if it weren't. Another definition: a settled tendency, usually I can't read in my own handwriting. A settled tendency of usual manner of behavior. And then another one, an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly completely involuntary. Notice that other word, acquired. And something that you do often and regularly, sometimes without knowing you're doing it. And that also fits. And then there is the definition in Wikipedia from a very long time ago, a study in a psychological manual, or not manual, a 1903 paper in the American Journal of Psychology defined habit from the standpoint of psychology as a more or less way of thinking. Willing or feeling, I don't know what they mean by willing. Anyway, thinking or feeling acquires through previous repetition of mental experience. And that one really fits our Zendo experience. I'll share some more about this. Habitual behavior, often unnoticed by persons exhibiting it, because a person does not need to engage in self-analysis when undertaking routine tasks. Habits are sometimes compulsory, but we're not concerned about that as much. The good part is new behavior can become automatic through the process of habit formation. Old habits are hard to break, and new habits hard to form, because the behaviors patterns that humans repeat become imprinted in neural pathways. But it is possible to form new habits through repetition. When behaviors are repeated in consistent context, there's an incremental increase in the link between the context and the action. So, for example, I don't know how, but it is these days, but many people get into their pajamas, brush their teeth, and turn down the covers. Maybe they'll read a book, or sadly, turn on the TV, which interferes with sleep, by the way, every night before they go to bed. Putting on the pajamas sort of primes the mind that that's what's going to happen next. Similarly, when we get into our Zazen clothes, we enter the Zendo, and our mind state is primed because of having gotten into those clothing to sit on the cushion and start meditating. I think this is why the Rochester Zen Center, Sogenji, and other temples require a certain uniform for dress in the Zendo. We're not as strict about this, but it definitely can help. Beyond that, though, we don't recognize, because habits are so unconscious so often, that we're carrying a lot of habitual baggage into the Zendo also. And that includes conditioning, ideas we've gotten about ourselves from that conditioning, habit patterns of mind states and mind habits that were produced as a result of that conditioning and may have been useful at the time, but in terms of our Zen practice, are actually hindrances. One of the biggest hindrances in that realm is an assumption of who we are and also an assumption of our capacity. When we have undergone certain experiences in life, early life in particular, as I did, we develop a sense of what's called learned helplessness. I was never allowed to experience practicing except on the piano. So I was always expected to be perfect in whatever I did right from the first moment of doing it. And then in addition, I was extremely constrained in the house. If I wanted to take a nap when I got older and was a teenager, for example, I'd go into my room, close my door, and pretty soon there'd be a knock on my door, and my mother would say, "What are you doing?" And I would say, "Taking a nap." And she said, "Well, if you don't have anything to do, then I'll give you something to do." So even that was limited. Going to the bathroom to take a shower, it took a little while before the warm water would start. But as soon as the water was turned on, there'd be a knock on the wall that also was the wall of the kitchen saying, "Turn off the water. You're in there long enough." When you have this kind of behavior, this kind of environment where you're not really able to do what you want to do, you're not really able to be free to follow your inclinations and so on. And also when people are continually downgrading you, has also happened. And as I said, what happens then is you have a sense that you're helpless to do anything on your own. You're helpless to move forward. You're helpless to succeed. You're plain helpless. It took me a very long time to undo that. A very long time. It informed my Zazen for the longest period of time, but finally I was able to move beyond it. There are a lot of things we carry around with us in terms of our self-image, in terms of the habit of seeing ourselves in a particular way. And of course, we can't just say, "All right, no, I'm not really that way," because somewhere in the background, we have a sense that we're a sham. We really are that way. We are incompetent. We are not good enough. We are whatever it is. So we have to keep questioning. And we can't question with words, because you can argue, as the saying goes, till the cows come home, and you won't make headway at all in it. You can use all the philosophy you want, and you still won't make a dent. What you have to do is go beneath this baggage and search without words, open to possibility. And one of the most important and effective ways to search is through the extended out-breath. As we extend the out-breath far enough that we have to focus on the experience, the bodily experience of it. We're not analyzing it. We're not trying to picture it as coming from one nostril or the other or anything else like that. It's a full bodily experience of breathing out and extending that out breath. And as we extend it, it requires attention and awareness to that experience. And that requires letting go of other things that would demand our attention, distractions, thoughts, and so on and so forth. This is its gift. And so as we keep on doing that for a long time, but with an openness to possibility that if we reach far enough, something really, really important is going to be made known to us. And it will be deep and real. And most likely, it will counteract at least some of that habitual mind state. It is so easy also to come into the Zendo, sit down on your cushion. You've done it a million times. Well, maybe not that many, but you've done it before. The honeymoon period has ended, where you were so interested in learning how to practice that you were fully present with that process. And so you sit down and you start to do a breath, and pretty soon your mind is wandering here and there and all around, and you're sort of doing the breath, but you're also thinking about other things, multitasking. This is why you have to push it further out, because you can't push it further out and still multitask, still hang on. And in order to come free of these habits of mind, free of the barriers to opening to our true self, we have to focus. We have to search. Search sounds like a very proactive word, but really what it is as Flora Courtois shared, I think it was Mitra-roshi's description, which was, and that wasn't of the Susokan, but of Shikantaza, which is called just sitting, which is considerably more than just sitting, and considerably less. He described it as if you're sitting in the forest, and you know that somewhere around there is something you need to be careful about, a wild animal, for example, and so you are alert, totally present with the moment. Open the possibility that that wild animal might come up to you. I know that when somebody who used to be here and was working at Philmont Scout Ranch, Jonathan, who was out in the forest sitting Zazen one morning, and he was so absorbed in the Zazen that a mountain lion was able to approach him to about 4 feet before he became aware of it, and he jumped up and it ran away. Apparently it was a young one, just curious. Going back a little bit, in the Foreign Service, the State Department, the diplomats who live and work all over the world, risking their lives often to serve the American president. Actually, you're supposed to be a direct representative of the President of the United States. And my husband was assigned to Beirut, Lebanon. He was in the embassy. His office, thankfully, was on the back side of the embassy, on the 6th floor, I think it was. And he was eating his lunch. He'd chosen to bring a bag lunch that day instead of his usual habit of eating in the cafeteria way down below. When he heard this great boom, he ran out his door and discovered that the whole front of the building had collapsed. It had been bombed. It was said that every single person in the cafeteria that day was killed. And then another incident as well in Lebanon. He would often share a ride with another American Foreign Service officer who lived in the same apartment and had his own car. And one day he decided instead to call an embassy car. And you always have that option in dangerous places to call an embassy vehicle, and they will come out and pick you up and take you back. You're also advised to never take the same route back and forth to the office, and for good reason. That day, he decided to go in an embassy car. The other man left, and eventually it was revealed that he'd been captured and killed. Twice, he escaped death by not going on habit. Now, most of us are not going to be in that state where we're in a dangerous situation. We have to avoid doing things habitually. But nonetheless, there are other examples. For example, there was a while ago a video of a woman who was on her cell phone, walking, texting, walking off a dock, down into the water. There are all kinds of funny videos of people doing stupid things because they're so absorbed in walking while they're texting. And of course, there's the known danger of driving while texting. But what about living without being in some habitual mind state? What about living totally present with the moment? I guarantee you it will be a very different experience. When you become one with the moment, which if we continue our Zen practice truly deeply, we will have experiences of. They'll be momentary at first, but like Hakuin, who is deep in his Zazen, when the big bell at the temple he was staying at during that time was rung, and it triggered a whole experience of oneness that was so deep that it was an enlightenment experience. Again, a sign of progress in your practice is when you will have those moments of oneness. Another sign is when you will have insights into, you'll suddenly see more clearly your behavior in such a way that you don't need to go there anymore. Again, breaking out of habit. It's very important in our Zen practice to become aware of our habits whenever possible and to unlock them, I guess is the best way to put it. To practice again and again being aware. And every time you pull your mind back to that extended out-breath, you're creating a new habit of becoming present. And you're disengaging an old habit of wandering mind. And you're also, as part of that, opening yourself to moments of complete oneness with that practice and with life, and the potential for coming to awakening. But you can also spend a lifetime sitting on your cushion and letting your mind kind of wander and play with all kinds of thoughts, and you won't come to awakening. But every time you bring your mind back to doing that extended out breath, and it takes practice to undo the habit of not paying attention. It takes practice to create a new habit of really putting yourself into that extended out breath in such a way that you're completely aware. And that's how you're going to come to awakening. It's an amazing practice. It's so simple. And maybe we think it's, we feel a little dumb doing something that simple. And then the other side of it is we can feel like we can't do it because we can't do anything. That's where that learned helplessness comes in. For a long time in my early Zen practice, those years when I was dissociated, it was because it felt hopeless. It felt like I was never going to be able to open to anything resembling awakening. That I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the capacity. It was very convincing, but eventually kept trying. I kept working at it. And this is what we all have to do. Because even having a Kensho experience, there's still more work to do. There's still uncovering more places where we're caught in habit, where we're caught in our conditioning, where we're caught in ideas, where we're caught in that, what makes up that self-image. But continue, and you'll be amazed. Continue, and you'll be amazed. This is why faith is so important in Zen, and determination to continue until you get there, however long it takes. The Buddha sat down and said, what is it, though my blood runs dry, and I can't remember the whole thing, I will stay here until I find my answers. Now we can try the first time we sit down in a cushion to make that determination, but it's rarely one that we're able to keep that early because of habit, because we're so accustomed to not focusing. And it's even worse now with all the electronic screens, because the creators of programs have learned that people will just tune out, go to another channel if they don't have things in rapid fire. And what that has done is trained our brains so that we need to have that constant change in order to not get bored. And that's had detrimental effects. There are books written about that. When we are so conditioned to having fast turnover in programming, within programming, then it trains our brains not to be able to attend to anything for very long. A few seconds, really. There are people who are authors, longtime authors, who have stated that they can't even read a whole paragraph anymore because of the effect of that fast, rapid fire changing that is always there on screens. So, what does that say? We don't do a lot of screens if we want to be able to be fully present, if we want to be able to concentrate for more than a few seconds. We need to avoid regular screens, because they're training our brain literally not to concentrate for very long at all, just a few seconds. So this also is in the realm of habit. It may be habitual for those of you who live at home to come home from work and flip on the TV. But I would suggest that you not do that. You take some screen vacations for a while. Read a book. Books are pretty interesting. And you can absorb yourself if you don't train yourself to get distracted after a few seconds. You can absorb yourself in a story that becomes far more fulfilling and creative too than watching a screen flicker on and on and on. Of course, go to the movies. Of course, check out the news if you want to. But it's also known that watching TV as you're going to bed is guaranteed to interrupt your sleep. And if you keep the screen on all the time, there's a constant distraction, and habit builds up to needing constant distraction. This is also a problem for our children in school. And in fact, pediatricians have urged families not to put a screen in front of a child until they're at least 2 years old, better 3, and better only from time to time. It's very sad when you see a child so young they can't even stand up and walk, but they can sit up, and they've got a screen plopped in front of them. Parents don't realize what it's doing to that child's brain. So habit is very important to pay attention to in our Zen practice. When you sit down on the cushion, notice how long it takes to distract yourself, to get bored, to want something different. Roshi Kapleau usually started the beginning of every sesshin in Rochester with the admonition, don't do business as usual. In other words, open yourself to exploration. Open yourself to being present and searching for the answer to that koan. I should say searching for the experience of the answer of that koan, because you're not searching for an answer, you're searching for an experience that reflects the answer. Not getting caught in habit pattern all the time also allows the mind to be more creative. So be careful. And if you really want to dig into your Zen practice, become aware over and over again of when you're drifting away on automatic, when you're doing the Susokan on automatic. It's possible to do an extended out-breath without really gaining the benefits of it, but that means you're not extending it to the full extent. And if you find yourself sort of automatically doing Susokan, then take time to really focus and extend, really extend, almost till you don't have any more breath, for several more breaths. And you'll gradually put yourself back in the saddle again. But then you'll fall off again, and you'll have to do it once more. This is why we call it practice. But keep it up, and you will get there. You will get there, I guarantee it. So it's really important to pay attention to everything, but all the more so to when you go on automatic.
So we'll stop here and recite the 4 vows. Thank you for listening.